What's going on, Workforce? Brian and Chris here, and today we're diving into recent comments Yoshi-P made on a live stream talking about how he really wants the 14 community to stop attacking World of Warcraft. I know I'm giving it a general summary, but there's also a lot of other news going on. Y'all have asked us to talk about certain things that have some serious weight to them. We're not going to do that. I think whenever it kind of crosses into this like real world allegations, we're here to talk about video games and the fun of video games. If more information breaks, and we'll let you know if that policy changes. But overall, just note that if you're coming here because of recent news, we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy. And that's essentially where we're going to go with it. Chris, good morning, man. How are you doing, dude? I heard your Xbox died last night.
My Xbox did die last night.
I'm so sorry.
Yep. I started with a couple seconds of black flicker every few minutes. Then it became longer seconds of black flicker. And then for our last round of Rocket League of the Nights, we had a guy spectating in there because there was more than 8 of us, and we made fun of it because my display went out, and I told him, "You got to tell me which way to go, man." And so I played blind because the audio is shipped to the headphones separately, and so I was driving and he was steering verbally, and I actually got third highest points in the lobby. So we debated.
There you go.
That's better than I'd done other rounds in the night.
Yeah,
So
that sounds like
yeah, do less.
It sounds like how we've changed PvP within 14, where we were just like, well, all right, we're going to make up new rules, and it turns out to be a resounding success. So
big disappointment, but
yeah. Rip Chris's Xbox. Sound off in chat. Also, if you're in the comments, you can send your sorries, your celebrations. I don't know. Sometimes the console wars bring out the best and or worst of us in this regard. So, Chris, I'm going to go ahead and toss it to your screen here. We've got some news. Final Fantasy XIV has had obviously a huge deal of success, and that continues. We just covered last week, not last week, this week. I've been sick, so my head's a little bit all in the clouds today still. But we just covered that Yoshi-P is talking about and apologizing for just this massive rush on servers. But yeah,
I think the takeaway from all of this is that Yoshi-P's talking. Like, the whole thing of all of this is that the good times and the bad, we communicate directly with the developers, not a few select members of the community have this direct line, not he's behind a wall, but should you be so lucky you get to hear from him. We hear from him regularly. So I think this is referencing the same thing that Asmongold recently reacted to some sections of it that were translated somewhere on YouTube. I don't know where he found his clip. It was probably posted to Reddit or something. So I watched him react to that yesterday, and I think it was a much larger context interview than the IGN headline here. But I mean, that's the nature of headlines. You only have so many characters, and you've got to pick out the thing most likely to get us interested. But it was very respectful of World of Warcraft. And so let's read this, and then I'll add any context that I feel maybe that clip added that IGN couldn't fit in their article.
Sounds good.
So, Final Fantasy XIV has had a great deal of success of late. On the flip side, World of Warcraft has had its share of struggles, from the departure of major influencers to controversy over its handling of one of its most important characters, Sylvanas. Final Fantasy XIV director Naoki Yoshida, that is Yoshi-P. Somebody in the comments say Yoshi-P is a different person.
Yeah, I know.
Clearing that up for all the new players.
The same person.
Same person. Kind of like calling Ian Watcher. They're same person. Isn't in the mood to celebrate, though. In fact, he would prefer that fans stop making negative comparisons between the two, calling claims that Final Fantasy XIV has successfully claimed the MMORPG crown irritating. The word in the interview was actually beat. The word that he latched onto that frustrated him was beat. He didn't like the word Final Fantasy XIV is beating WoW, at least in the translation that I saw. The hard work we've been putting into Final Fantasy XIV did pay off, Yoshida said in a translated clip of a recent stream, as reported by PC Gamer. But this whole conversation about surpassing WoW is the wrong conversation to have, and it's honestly irritating. Instead, Yoshida says that Final Fantasy XIV owes WoW a debt of gratitude, noting that A Realm Reborn wouldn't exist without Blizzard's long-standing MMORPG. Yoshida himself is a WoW fan, and he took many cues from Blizzard in building Final Fantasy XIV into the game it is today. WoW was the game we constantly looked up to, Yoshida said. Elsewhere in the stream, Yoshida expressed gratitude for Final Fantasy XIV's recent surge in concurrent players in anticipation of the Endwalker expansion, calling it kind of scary. But he also said there's no way Final Fantasy XIV could match the 12 million paid subscribers that WoW enjoyed at its peak, likening it to Mount Everest. One way or another, Final Fantasy XIV continues to enjoy immense success, and that is something everyone can agree is worth celebrating. So I will say, and this is talking about November 23rd. Keep in mind, if you pre-order that, you're going in on the 19th,
so baby.
Anybody who opts in on the 23rd is gonna be like, wait, they're already at cap.
Yeah. What happened?
Oh, you bet we are.
Who are these gamers that just crushed it out in the first week? Not even a week. The weekend, baby.
So the clip went on to do other things. I mean, the clip went on to talk about how even they're continually setting records almost daily right now.
Yeah.
Is what he said in the translation that I saw.
Yep.
But he did not reveal their numbers.
No.
But he said not even in the ballpark of 12 million active subscribers.
You hear that? Workforce challenge accepted. We might not be 12 million strong here on YouTube, but dadgummit, we're feisty. Yeah, I don't think that's the way of business. I liken a lot of this to the fading console wars. Like we were just talking about at the start of this video, your Xbox died, right? The console wars are, I think, a relic of the past. There are this mindset that people still hold on to. But when you look at gaming and the health of gaming and what gaming can do is actually bring people together, all different like avenues of life, race, religion, creed, like anything. Gaming can strip away all of that. And as gamers, like there is that sense of tribalism that's natural in humanity. And to see that with what I'm hearing from Yoshi-P in this case, it's that it doesn't benefit 14. This is a conversation. Attacking World of Warcraft does not actually benefit Final Fantasy XIV. What benefits Final Fantasy XIV is looking at the good and the positive. Like, hey, this is somebody who's doing something right. That's the kind of feedback that I would say that if you are enjoying Final Fantasy XIV, or if you like another MMO like Guild Wars 2, for example, I really enjoy a lot of the systems that game brings. That's a way of positively providing kind of that feedback to him in that regards. What do you think, Chris?
I think there was a lot of context. Unfortunately, like articles like this, they're already long enough that people are only going to read the headline. And this left out a ton of context, even in the clip that like I think Asmongold had that was only like 3 minutes long. So like, unfortunately, Yoshi-P was asking for even more maturity than just don't attack WoW. He was talking about this a lot deeper. He was talking about this a lot more about the respect he's had for WoW over the years and where that inspiration comes from, talking about the importance of this genre and how in many ways their goal was not to be WoW or to beat WoW, but to look at the things WoW did well, be inspired by those things, and do a Final Fantasy take on them, which is exactly what we're asking for when we say things like, I would love Final Fantasy XIV to get a Mythic Plus. We don't want a carbon copy.
Right.
We want a Final Fantasy version of the same thing where they take the same system and in the act of bringing it into their game, even if it tries to carbon copy, something about the way it interacts with the loot system or the class system or the world that it's in, it's going to change just inherently by coming into the game. Even a crossover event, it changes. Yeah. Rathalos in this game feels different than Rathalos in Monster Hunter, and it's the same boss. The same name, the same model, and it still is a different fight. So I think there can be more respect in the room, but it's not what the fun headlines are right now. People want to talk about the moment WoW might be getting past in current concurrent active users compared to 14, that it's dead. It's dead in the water. Shut it down. And that's not going to get better in the light of the allegations and accusations that are coming out this week. That's not going to make it better. That's going to justify the tearing down another game in the same space.
It'll be really interesting to see how that plays out over the course of the next couple of weeks. That's why we want to kind of sit on the information and just kind of be able to take a more reflective approach to it. I see Chad actually bringing up a couple interesting points, saying that I understand what Yoshi-P is going for, but I still disagree with the comparison. And then Vesta following it up saying, a lot of people respected WoW at once and at one point, but that's why people are so angry and irritated now. Yoshi-P also said that people who complain are the ones who still care. And I think that's a real important thing.
That's not just his quote.
That's not just his quote, but that's actually a really good point. Like, we've said this numerous times here on the channel. We believe in like a full holistic view of talking about Final Fantasy XIV MMORPGs as a genre. We don't want to sit here and just be a hype machine of any one company and just tell you everything's great and perfect and you should never sit here and worry. No, let's talk about that 10% of things that could be improved upon and bring it to discussion, because that's a part of what we believe is caring. I've always kind of equated a video game, especially an MMORPG, as a relationship. It's a service, it's a community, it's a game, but there's a relationship component that I always kind of see how you interact with this game and how you communicate it with it. And so if I was going to talk to my wife and be like, all right, like, you know, like one day all of a sudden I'm done. And she's like, what happened? Oh, you frustrated me for the last, you know, X amount of years. It's like, well, why didn't you tell me? I could have worked on that stuff. You know, like we need to make sure we're communicating in a respectful way, an honest way, and one that's not necessarily like saying like I'm mad and stomping my feet. Like there's the difference between communicating like a toddler and communicating like an adult. Anyway, go ahead.
I think there's probably a break point for one person. And so as a collective, we can probably look at a group of people and make them very binary and say they currently aren't playing WoW and aren't coming back, and they aren't playing WoW and will come back, and so on. But when you look at the bigger context, right, let's take like 2020. 2020 was a year full of plenty of bad news worldwide. If any of you were able to live in a remote cabin and weren't aware, things weren't going great. And so as a result, though, there were people that got married in 2020. There were people that fell in love for the first time during 2020. There were children born during 2020. There were people that graduated from high school or college during 2020. People that got promotions. People that started their own business that is now succeeding. There were good things that came out of 2020. And so the world can be more complex than that. So even in the context of last night, I'm seeing, you know, people in chat saying like, now people are going to be upset. As a reminder of how the timeline works, the world first race was settling third place and moving into settling fourth place as this news was breaking. So there are groups of people logged into World of Warcraft, especially when you talk about some of these guilds that are fighting to go higher up the ranks than maybe they've ever gone before. There are people in the middle of this world first race who aren't out looking at this stuff, who are having career, for lack of a better term, defining moments in their gaming experience, that are having these moments that are going to be positive memories of when they achieved something they never thought they could in World of Warcraft through hard work and perseverance, at the very same time that there are very serious and very substantial allegations going towards the company that runs that game.
Yeah.
At the same time, those can exist in the same space. And so somebody can say, I'm really excited for Pieces, which is a guild in World of Warcraft, and I think they had an incredible tier, and I really enjoyed watching them progress through World First. At the same time as I think allegations here, if the ones of these that hold weight, you know, which is something they're looking into, like these are significant, and there's a significant number of them. So there are clearly people that are very much at fault here and have been at fault. The only difference is now we know about it. And those can be in our heads at the same time. Like, I've seen the demographics behind work to game and gaming and like, I'm aware that the vast majority of you are over the age of 18. So I know that you can have these feelings where you can both like something and dislike something at the same time. And I think that's all Yoshi-P's saying here. Yeah. He's not saying Shadowlands is perfect. I can't believe you guys don't love Shadowlands. It was amazing. He's saying WoW can still be an inspiration. We can be respectful of them in the space. Right. While still being like, okay, like, let's go out there. I had a football coach in high school, and there was another team that was like, we were competing for best in the district, and we beat them handedly. Yeah. And on the ride home, there was a chant that started from a bunch of high school boys saying that they sucked. And the coach shut us up and said, so let me get this straight. You guys are excited to beat a team that sucked? Yeah. My understanding is that you beat a team that was good. You should be proud and respectful of they are good and you're better. You're insulting yourself here while being disrespectful.
We did not plan for this. Exactly. Because I've always, when people are like, especially when you're like, that team sucks, and then they beat you, it's like, I guess we suck more. But to take your story here, that's actually where one of the things I was going to go to. Something my dad taught me is that, like, when you make a good play, just go about like that's just what you do. Like, you don't take time to celebrate. You don't, like, when you fall, you go on stage, you're in theater, if you fall down and fall on your butt, you get right back up, and you don't tell anybody that that wasn't a part of the plan, because no one's going to know it unless you telegraph it. If you make an amazing play, if you're doing really well, no, like, you don't need to sit here and take every like little victory and celebrate every little, milestone to say, yep, that's why. It's like, no, like, you're just like, we're going to go about it. We're going to keep doing, and we're going to keep playing both the fundamentals, but we're also going to keep communicating and delivering on what we say that we're going to deliver on. And that's something that continues to build up that trust bank that we have, so that even if there's a bad expansion in Final Fantasy XIV's future, and at some point that number is not going to make any sense, but even at, at that point, like, we're going to have enough trust to say, you know what, you've taken us all the way this far. I completely understand if you slap on 17, or if you just take off the number altogether and you just call it Final Fantasy Online. It doesn't matter. Like, we are going to be on board for wherever Yoshi-P takes us. And I think it's, it's like, would we attack EverQuest for the success of 11? Like, I think there's a sense that there's a dogpiling mindset that's happening, obviously, right now. And I think what we're seeing with the allegations and more just add more fuel to that fire. So if you're on the fence, the question is like, I wonder if that's going to just say, okay, fine, I'm done. That was the last straw. I was just, I was holding on by a thread. Or if you've already gone off, is this something that keeps you from coming back? Honestly, that's going to be a personal decision by every gamer that they have to make. I think the worst situation the Blizzard's in right now, beyond just how horrible this stuff is going on, is that there's no real good news that they have to deliver on. There's no Diablo 4 this fall. There's a long period of time between now and whenever that they can actually sit here and say, we fixed it. But maybe some good stuff comes out of this. Like Square Enix was in like not a similar position, but with 1.0, they changed the leadership. They rethought how they needed to think, and sometimes some of these horrible things, unfortunately.
Yeah, company's an entity.
Yeah.
It currently is a summary of the people that currently work there and the current culture and objectives of those people.
And that can change.
All of that can change.
All that can change.
All that has changed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In both cases.
Yeah.
For better and worse within the industry. We have seen companies get better. We've seen companies get worse. We've seen companies do both, where they have periods of time where they're getting worse and periods of time where they get better. Sometimes it's an ownership shift. Sometimes it's a leadership shift. Sometimes it's a cultural shift within a community as new staff come on. It can be any number of things that trigger it. I will say 1.0 was a lot more far gone than WoW has ever been.
Yeah.
As just a set of game mechanics that players pay for access to. So to believe that a personnel shift or a cultural shift or just a sheer objective shift could get it back into a better spot. Like, it doesn't feel, I think that's what's so frustrating about it, is that it like servers were stable, zones were beautiful, they had content in them. Like, it's like, no, you're doing enough that tells me you guys know how to make games. I don't feel like I'm picking on somebody that's like, hey, I just finished my first programming class. How do you like my game? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're not going to update it for at least 8 months. Like, no, we're picking on somebody that has clearly proven they can do better. So I don't think Yoshi-P is not saying you can't seek improvement, that you can't have criticism.
Mm-hmm.
I think what he's saying is there's this blood in the water attack where people are almost taking joy and having fun in saying, I've never played this game, I'll never play it.
Yeah.
I hope these people's careers are over. I hope that people who worked on this game never find a job again in gaming. Like, these I think what happens is somebody says, I don't like that game, and somebody goes, yeah, well, I never liked that game. Yeah, well, I'll never, ever, ever support anything from that publisher again. And then it snowballs to where it's long past criticism, and it gets to be these really personal attacks.
It's a cult. It ends up becoming like this bandwagon culture that essentially is like, hey, look at us. We're this is who we are. And and that's I think that actually hurts Final Fantasy XIV in the long run. I think essentially if we let that build up, then in the long run, that's not helping our game out. That's not helping our community out. And essentially it's like, we're not saying you have to go like it, but we're saying that it, like, in agreeing with Yoshi-P, there's no point in attacking it in this regards, because he's right. Like, Yoshi-P said, and I believe him, that 14 would not exist if WoW wasn't WoW. They drew inspiration from that. And so it seems like we're only kind of attacking ourselves. And it's unfortunate that the internet trolls that kind of do that mindset are the ones and the opinions that tend to float to the top, because
it drives the narrative.
Yeah, it drives the narrative. So, all right, Chris, you want to take us out?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple versions of this going around. So he communicates a lot in English. So after this, we're going to go read a recent update to the Lodestone about EU servers. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of this interview get translated from different perspectives, because not knowing Japanese, even if I could find an original raw clip, I don't know, maybe that's the problem. Maybe at this point, Work to Game should know Japanese. But either way, until then, from Brian and Chris, have a great day. Take care.